Hi, I'm Christopher Walker with Closely Observed English, and in this video I'm going to help you, a B2 First for Schools candidate, understand the assessment for the speaking paper a little bit. This is part of a series of videos. We've already looked at the other areas of assessment. This is the last one for us to consider, and this one is called interactive communication. So we're going to look at Band 3 first and then look at Band 5, and we'll talk about the differences. Band 3, if you'll remember, is for a pass. Band 5 is a bit higher up. And I'm going to give you some ideas of how you can improve your grade here through good preparation for the exam. So for a Band 3, the first description says that a good candidate initiates and responds appropriately. So there are a couple of things to consider here. You can't always initiate. Initiate means start. So for example, in parts 1 and 2 of the speaking paper, when the interlocutor asks you a question, you don't really initiate anything there. It's really only in parts 3 and 4 that you have the chance to start the conversation going. But you can always respond appropriately. Responding appropriately, first of all, means that you answer the right question. So for example, let's say that in part 1, the interlocutor is talking about your English and how you learnt English, and they say, for example, how do you find learning English? And you think, Google Maps, came here to the school, easy. Unfortunately, that's not what the question was. It was how do you find, how do you appreciate, what's difficult, what's easy about it. That's a different use of the verb find. So that was an inappropriate response. Another way to think about initiating and responding appropriately would be, especially in parts 3 and 4, that you do it politely. You're nice. You don't put your hand out and say, "Stop, I talk now." That would not be appropriate. We have to be polite. That means smiling, nodding, saying yes, but, and then you can go in. And in fact, that takes us through to Band 5 for the same idea, which is that at Band 5, the candidate initiates and responds appropriately, linking contributions to those of other speakers. They say other speakers because it's possible that you'll be in a group of 3, you and 2 other candidates. It's possible, so they need to include that here. So responding appropriately then, you can use the beautiful yes, but language. So that would be appropriate response, but linking contributions, that's a bit more difficult. So let's say that you're talking about healthy eating. And one person says, it's difficult for people to eat healthily because healthy food is expensive. Great idea. Now you want to link your idea to that. So you say, yeah, you're right. And not just that, the food is expensive, but you need to spend more time preparing the food to eat when you buy better ingredients, more expensive ingredients. If you buy a ready meal and blah, 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 you've already linked. But that's what I mean. You're paying careful attention to what the first person said and you are extending the idea. The next part for Band 3 says maintains and develops the interaction and negotiates towards an outcome with very little support. Band 5 is almost the same. It says maintains and develops the interaction and negotiates towards an outcome. So they take away the support part. So who gives that support first of all? Well, that would be really the interlocutor usually. And this would be where the interlocutor has to remind you what to do next. Maybe in part 3, you have to decide with your partner. You've got the 5 points and it's which one's more important. And you're like, well, you're not talking about it. So the interlocutor says, now decide which one is the most important. They kind of have to push you on. Another part of support would be in part 4 when we have this extended discussion. This would be where you give an idea, but you don't say why. So the interlocutor has to say, why? And then you answer that or explain that. So those sort of things are the support side. Maintains and develops the interaction. So this is really part 3 and part 4, where you are talking to your partner and, well, here's a little idea. Listen to this and tell me if you think this is maintain and develop the interaction. You're looking at the 5 points around the board, and your partner talks about the first one, and then it's your turn and you say, yes, I could not agree with you more. What about this one? I think for this one, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you said you agreed. Doesn't that mean that you've developed the interaction? Not really. There was no substance, there was no meat on those bones. So developing the interaction means more than just saying, yes, I agree, and moving on. That's more to do with linking what you say to what other people have said. One way that you can practice developing the interaction would be to try and think of everything in as many ways as possible. So you could do, for example, pros and cons of things. For example, right now it's raining. It's raining really heavily. So what's good about that? Well, it's good for the ground because everything was pretty dry out there. It's good for the plants, definitely. It's good, to clear the heat out of the air. So these are some good reasons. What are the bad reasons for it? Well, so much rain in a short time can lead to flooding. It doesn't go into the ground, it just washes away. It can cause accidents. There's lightning that can strike things. So you start talking about it, suddenly in an extended discussion, instead of just saying, oh, it's raining, suddenly you've got enough for 5 minutes of conversation, and that will help you to maintain and develop the interaction. Now, the last part where it says negotiates towards an outcome. This is quite useful to consider. It's quite important. A lot of people ask me for part 3, when you have to talk with your partner about different things, and then you have to decide, for example, which is the most important. People keep asking me, what happens if we don't choose the most important thing? Do we fail? Is it the end of the world? And I say, well, listen to this. You have to negotiate towards an outcome. That means that you have to talk about the right thing, which is the choice, but you don't have to decide. You have to be going in the right direction. If your partner says, I think this is the most important, and you say, idiot, talk to the hand, and then you wait for the minute to pass, that is not negotiation, and that's not going towards an outcome here, the choice. If, however, your partner says, well, I think it's this because of this reason, and you say, okay, yeah, I can understand that. I think that this is more important, and this is why. What do you think? And then she goes, yeah, I can see, yeah. You haven't made a decision. That's okay. If you had more time, you probably would. You're in the right direction, and it's the direction that matters most. Okay. So we've got our ideas for interactive communication. It's the idea of starting and answering when you're talking, linking what you say to what your partner says, and it's also about going in the right direction to get to the end. So how can you prepare for this? Well, one way that you can prepare, and it does help if you have somebody to prepare with, would be to practice talking about everything and just putting what's good and bad about before anything. For example, oh, here we go. I have a glass just here. What is good and bad about having a glass for me to put water in? So you could talk about everything you can think of that's good and bad. Then the next thing would be, okay, if I don't use a glass, what if it was a plastic beaker? What would be good and bad about that? What's next? Maybe a bottle of water, a plastic bottle. What's good and bad about that? Talk about all of these possibilities with your practice partner, and then choose maybe the best one. I want to drink some water. Well, what's best? Well, here, this is best because this looks good, it feels good. But if I go for a run, I don't really want to run holding a glass of water like this. I'll spill it. or I'll break it when I drop it. I need a plastic bottle then. You see what I mean? Just by saying what's good and bad about, and then anything. You can talk for a while with your partner, share ideas, then change one aspect of the thing. We're still talking about a container for water, just different ones. And then choose. Before you know it, you'll be talking for 20 minutes about the best thing to put your water in. And that's just a start. Imagine the fun you could have. Okay, fun might not be the best word for this, but you get the idea. So there we go. We've now looked at all of this. Just to recap, we talked about global achievement. That's the mark that the interlocutor gives you. And we talked about grammar and vocabulary, discourse management, pronunciation, and interactive communication. The 4 areas that will be assessed by the assessor. We've also talked about some different things that you can do to help you prepare. A lot of those are hidden in the other videos, so sorry, you have to watch them, you have to give me the views. I suppose you could also like the videos and subscribe to the channel maybe, possibly. If you do, great. If not, the important thing is that you get something useful from these videos. And with that in mind, I say good luck, goodbye, and see you around.